Hello, everyone, and welcome. It's great to see so many people so early. Everyone arrived so timelessly. I don't know if it has anything to do with spring has sprung in the northern hemisphere, and we are all enjoying it cooling down a little in the southern. I'm Lisa. It's nice to be here. I'm from South Africa, a small town called Robertson. I've been teaching English for quite a few years, online and in person, as I'm sure some of you have also. I see there are people from all over the world. So it's great to see people from Canada, US, South Africa, Joburg, Hungary, UK, London, Ireland, Port Elizabeth, PE or GQ as it sometimes is called. So it's good to see you all. Hi, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. What we are chatting about today is learning styles. Okay, so we will jump right into it. Learning styles. So that is different ways of, I'm going to also put this up right now before I forget. I'll just send that through. Okay, it's not up yet, but it's just for later. Okay, so this is a very useful webinar, I think, especially when you are doing your assignments because you are planning lessons for your students, and all of this very good things to take into account when you are planning lessons. Okay, learning styles, because all students and all people learn in different ways, as we know, because we all do as well. Everyone does. Okay. So how do you think that you would learn a new language, or keep learning an old language, or carry on learning a language? Okay, so some of these, so how do different learners process the information? How do they understand the information you're giving them? How do they express themselves in a classroom online? And how do they retain and keep all that information? So all of those are things to take into account when we are looking at the different learning styles. Process, understand, express, and retain. Okay. Would you create mind maps? Some people are mind map people. Or do you like to take notes? Is it more effective for you to listen to the target language? Some people take in information orally, orally better than others. Some people listen and take it better than others. Do you prefer to learn in groups or to learn alone? And would you use a combination? Would you personally use a combination of different methods? I think in our classes, obviously, as we will chat about as we go, we need to use a combination of different methods. Okay. So it is unlikely that any student will have only one single learning style. If you again think about yourself, are you better at reading, better at listening, better at watching, better at writing? Everyone has their own. When you studied at university or school, what was your best way of getting stuff in and retaining it? Most of us use a combination of different styles, and however, at times you might find there are predominant styles in some learners. You might have a whole class of students that are not good at listening or are very good at listening. So these are all good things to take into account. Okay. Drawing on, there's a psychologist, I don't know if there still is or was, a psychologist called Howard Gardner, and he has a theory of multiple intelligences. So there are 7 learning styles, broken down into 7 learning styles. And I think these really do cover all kinds of learning styles. So spatial or visual is when you learn by seeing. So it's not so much reading as seeing. So this would be pictures, videos, things in books that you just, as you see it, and it is how you take things in. So spatial and things around you. So spatial, visual, number 1. Auditory, so listening, or musical. So I don't know, this just thinking, if you do music, if you know music, that might be a very good way of understanding if your oral's good or not. Okay. Kinesthetic, that word, kinesthetic. Okay, is to learn by using the body to real and tangible means. So that's if when you learn especially potentially for younger learners, that they will understand by standing up and sitting down. And it made me think when I was reading these notes, Simon says, so you learn and move at the same time, which especially for younger learners will be, obviously you can imagine that it is going to be much better. I even have had some online small learners where just standing up and pointing has been very useful. So another way of learning. Let me carry it. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Number 4, verbal. Okay, so words, reading or writing. So for some people, their mind sticks on the words, and I'm a word person. I know that for me it's words. For some people, not so much. Okay. Books, writing, reading. So all things to do with words. I think to a large extent, words are how most people are taught. So I think sometimes it's the easy way to teach and to take in, because that is how students are traditionally taught. Like in traditional schools, they're taught with words, reading, writing. But obviously that is important, but there are other ways too. So that is what we are talking about. Logical or mathematical. So some people, now thinking about this, even if you don't think it's maths, like some people like to have things in lists or in categories. So you learn, and then it's all, if you can categorize or put it in a list or in a group, like almost that, like sets of things. So if you could learn sets. I like to teach something like opposites. That's almost a mathematical way of learning. So you have up or down. Then it's a great way to structure things. So I think we do that as well. We do that all the time. So you might not think of that as mathematical, not really maths, but if you have things in sets or groups and have a structure to how you teach, that you are teaching with a logical and mathematical idea and mind. All right. Interpersonal social. So now we're talking about working together in groups. So learning with others. So all sorts, we will obviously delve into all of these things in more detail, but so that's what we're going to talk about. So learning in groups, working together in partners or pairs or groups or the full class. So that is the interpersonal or social way of studying and learning. And then intrapersonal or solitary is where you learn alone, which I think in this day and age often happens as well. You have one-to-one classes and people need to go off and do their own homework and extra work. All right. So we're going to go into more detail in all of those. So our lessons and teaching methods should incorporate multiple learning styles, so all our students benefit, and this is to promote their learning adaptability. So that if you have all different kinds, some students will find some parts easy and some parts more of a challenge, but obviously our lessons need to cover, maybe not in every single lesson, but need to cover all of the different learning styles here and there at any rate. Okay, so to make sure all our students benefits, to promote their learning adaptability, so you can adapt to things. Listening, for instance, can be very tricky for a lot of students, and even just because it's hard doesn't mean they must still practice that. So you need to balance that within a class or one-to-one, and to strengthen our learners' understanding and to help us elicit new language from them. So different ways, some pictures for younger students or for people who are visual learners will give them the ideas. Often when in assignments that I look at and mark, so if you introduce in the warmer, pictures are always a great idea, whether that is adult students or kids students, little students. To see things is a great way to warm up and get your mind thinking of words. That's what made me think of immediately. Okay. So carrying on with the variety in lessons to strengthen our learners' understanding and help us elicit new language. So just continuing from what I was saying. All right. So combining the different learning styles in our lessons will benefit students who have trouble with certain areas in English, such as understanding grammar or grasping a reading text, for example. So through the use of various stimuli such as visuals, audio, working in groups, etc., each learning style will help to strengthen our students' understanding. So as I said before, for some, because different students have different strengths and weaknesses, so to go through all of the styles within a lesson will mean that you cover everything. In addition, the learning styles help us elicit new language from our students. Okay, and we will carry on looking at the different learning styles, strengthening those to cement and create a great lesson. Okay, now we're looking at number 1. I'm going to have a sip of water. Okay, visual spatial learning style. So this is where we have pictures, images, so either drawings or photos, or nowadays people use Canva and have sort of designed things, posters, flashcards, all great things when you are teaching, and specifically for vocabulary or grammar. Videos, we have YouTube, we can just access so easily, and let's get this word, realia, so real stuff. You bring actual things into the classroom, so props, costumes, hats, things that are always great if you're, again, teaching vocabulary or for exercises or activities where the students need to role play. That kind of thing can be very helpful. Instead of just role playing, you can make it into a play in a way if you add all the extra stuff. And then on the walls or behind you, if you are teaching online, grammar and vocabulary charts, or obviously in the classroom. I mean, if you think of your grade 1 classrooms with A is for apple, that kind of thing, obviously very useful. Colorful boards with key info underlined, color code, I see, I caught a message, color code parts of speech. Absolutely. So I don't know the code, but if all verbs are blue or nouns are yellow, I don't know the code. I'm sure there is a real code, so I'm just saying, but yes, color coding different parts of speech would be very, very useful. Okay. So now we have the auditory or musical style. So listening, firstly, listening. Discussions, pronunciation, because this is very much a part of listening, is how the words are said. So a part that you will have to do a lot of, if it is a brand new language, is to how are the words said? Where are the stresses in each sentence? Where does the intonation go up and down? So all of those things are part of the auditory part of the lesson. Pronunciation drills, grammar and vocabulary lessons based on songs or videos, which is a fun way of doing it. I'm just checking if I've got my notes and my slides aligned. Okay. Oh yes, before I missed some things. I'm going to quickly go back because I got distracted by the color coding parts of speech. But there are other things in the visual and spatial learning style that we could use. So Pictionary is a great game and activity to use with. Actually, Pictionary for adults is also fun. But drawing and putting things together. Hangman, very visual, kids like that. Describe, label, or caption images. That's also very good. I mean, that's even part of IELTS, where a map or a diagram or a picture needs to be described. So that's definitely part of learning. And something you need to look into. Comic strips, always in exams. In English exams, they give you comics that explain why it's funny, that kind of thing. So all of those things are very, very useful. Okay, now we'll go back to auditory and listening and musical. It is something as well. Encourage students to watch films or series in English. If you're learning a different language, go and watch a Spanish thing in Spanish. Listen to it. I always found that if you listen to a language the day before you did an oral, then the was in your head. So it's a great thing to encourage students to watch and listen. It's because it's fun as well. If you're a kid, you can watch cartoons and series. There's so many things that people can watch nowadays. And you can listen to podcasts, audiobooks. There's so much. There's so much. So, some more examples. Students can read text aloud, and read silently and aloud to each other. Read texts in a whole class, or even plays in a whole class that people can play parts. It's also fun and interesting and engaging. Listening memory games. So that could be quite tricky. But if you have to listen and remember sounds and put it in as part of a game, very good idea. Really make my head go, oh. I'm one that battles a bit with listening. It's not where I take language or anything in perfectly. I need to see it. So listening can be a challenge. This is great. I again saw a lovely Rosie. Great. We have not gone into questions and answers, but I'm seeing so many great ideas here. I'm going to just add it because it's part of the lesson. Sing in target language. How I improved my French accent, which is a great idea. Thank you. What a fun idea. Singing songs and poems, the kind of thing that if you learn them once, they will stick in your head forever. I still remember poems from primary school that I learned, and songs. So songs are great. And obviously with children, you're learning animals, things like Old MacDonald. Donald? Old MacDonald. I don't want to say that name really. Okay. Obviously, songs like that for kids, that kind of song is so useful. And poems that you'll remember. So, and for accents, also great. If you listen to anything specifically for accents, you need to. Otherwise, what will you do? So, accents, listening, to go hand in hand. Okay, kinesthetic. Kinesthetic. What a funny word. Physical movement. All right. I was thinking of a dance class, but as I said before, this is specifically with younger learners. I think that perhaps adults would, not that they wouldn't learn through music, through physical movement, but they might be more hesitant to learn through physical movement, whereas a class of kids standing up, throwing balls, passing something when they have to, you catch the ball, you must answer. That's the best kind of thing to do, especially with younger learners. So use some physical movement, props again, realia, real life situations, practical examples. So all sorts of things where you are moving around and engaging physically in a class. Also, it staves off boredom. So if everyone stands up and sits down again or follows instructions that they're listening to, so you hear the instruction, do the instruction, it puts all of the things together. All right, so it's a great thing to add into a lesson. And if you've been reading and doing grammar for a long time, this is a great kind of thing to sort of re-energize and wake the class up. So many great ideas. Pantomime. What a fun idea. Pantomime, like, where's the baddie? He's under the table. Sorry, that's bad. But yes, obviously adding drama into any lesson is always fun. And I don't know, if you get kids to move in different ways, they will take things in different ways. If they are moving slowly or moving like a mouse, then they'll remember mouse, they'll remember the word. So you can, especially again with young students, always go to animals. Yes, okay. And more activities for younger learners. So blocks, puzzles, board games, crafts, then for sort of medium learners, charades, show and tell. So such great activities to add to any lesson. And when you are planning your lessons, great things to add into your written lesson plans. Also, fun ideas. Skits, charades, yes, good, all great ideas. Adult learners have them prepare presentations. So also it could be, you can use drama in education as well, like, and role playing. So it could be, this is very like a job interview or a phone conversation, or what would you say if you are lost at a train station? So all this kind of thing where you're learning great grammar and vocabulary with a real life situation here. If you need to buy if you need to buy something at a market, or you need to get onto a train, or book a hotel room. So all of this kind of thing could be done with movement as well, and skits and charades and pantomimes. And thank you so much for all the great ideas as well as we are going through the class. It's great to have ideas, and I don't feel like I'm just talking alone. So thank you. Excellent ideas. Thank you, Emmanuel and Rosie. Thank you. All right. Reading, writing. So this, the usual, but there are still great things within reading and writing that can be very exciting, engaging, and fun. Which is one of the best. When something is fun, then it's so much. I don't know. I think people take things in. Okay, with verbal or reading or writing skills, students process information in words, whether they are written or spoken. So speaking activities and reading activities, we know this. So this is the obvious one, but there are still great ideas. So written assignments and tasks, but there are all sorts of fun things. Storytelling is a great one. Category writing games. So if you're writing in a different kind of a style, okay, I think like if you were to write an adventure story, or write a CV in English. So it depends. Different kind of written assignments and tasks. Worksheets, obviously, journal writing. So different kinds of writing. You can make up stories. You can get, so verbal, reading, writing, we'll get to speaking. And it's speaking as well, but all sorts of improvising kind of games as well that are fun. I mean, there's one of the assignments, the first conditional, that has the first conditional story chain, which is such a fun thing. Such a fun thing, which is a speaking and listening activity. Right. For those of you who are doing L5B assignments, that's one of the many activities you can have for the freer practice. All right. Logical or mathematical. So if you break down the language structures into tables and charts, these are again posters you could have, and then this also goes hand in hand with the color coding. So that's visual and spatial, but it also is logical and mathematical. So, and obviously lessons should follow a logical structure, so that also helps with. So we start with the beginning, then the middle part, and then the plenary at the end, which makes everything neat and in an order that helps understand as well. Specific activities. So have students prepare for and present an argument for debates. That is a fun, logical, mathematical activity. I see here again some great suggestions as well. Ben, hi. Find the mistake worksheets, very nice. To see what makes sense, what doesn't. Good. 20 questions. These are all, thank you. Find the mistakes. These are not questions, these are comments, and thank you. And I'm going to 20 questions. These are such fun, good ideas and for games and activities. Very nice. Okay. Interpersonal and social. So now this is classwork. Peer correction, peer teaching. So that's where you get the students to correct each other, to explain the work to each other. And even in medicine, see one, teach one, see one, do one, teach one. That's medicine. Not that I ever studied that, but maybe it's from watching too much TV. Anyway, but if a student can teach another student how something works, they will not forget that. So that's a great interpersonal skill. Group, pair activities, teamwork. So great things for controlled practice and freer practice. And working together helps learners to feel free to speak. So if they are a bit nervous, if everyone says things together, that is going to help. So everyone stands up together and says, and can go through drills and pronunciation drills together, it's going to make the shyer people feel so much more comfortable. Right. And then if you can encourage an environment where your learners can feel free to speak, include as much interaction between students as possible. So in a class, obviously one-to-one, not as easy. But if you can encourage students to maybe talk to their friends in their second language, in English, that's obviously a good thing to do. So also interpersonal, share stories and opinions. Interviews are always fun. So you can even pretend they are other people and have interviews. So they interview each other about real things. They can interview each other about, pretend you are climbing a mountain, or someone's climbed a mountain, and ask them what they felt about it. That kind of thing. Depending on what you want to teach. I don't want mountain climbing. Anyway, so interviews are a great idea. Mystery games, negotiations where students need to collaborate as a team. So all of these things are such great ideas for activities and things you can do in your class. I also think if you go through if you're planning a lesson and go through the 7 things, it's like, it's like you can tick, have I done this. It's a great way for an overview of how you plan your lesson. Like, have you dealt with everything? Have you gone to each different kind of learning style? All right, and now we have intrapersonal solitary. So learners benefit from the solitary process through self-study. So, and then even within a big group, you let students also work alone times. So within a class, they can also have some solitary alone time. So maybe the controlled practice worksheets they do on their own, and then they come together to check answers together in a group or in pairs. So you can play with that kind of thing as well. When possible, delegate individual tasks to students in groups. So, this one will hand out the papers. This one will, it's always a good thing to give instructions that students have to follow, and group instructions as well as just one-on-one instructions. And homework to encourage self-study, which will be presumably alone. Give students an individual research project to work on, or to go and read something and come back. They could keep an English journal. They could watch something and come back and tell you all about it. So these are all the kind of things you can do to deal with the interpersonal solitary learning style, which within a class, you might have 3 students who, for instance, who work much better on their own, and you have to spot them and go, okay, we need to work there. So watch for within a group for some students that work better on their own. Okay. So incorporating different learning styles into our lessons is helpful to promote inclusivity, which helps motivation and learning in our lessons. So obviously, all of these things, we need to do them all. You can't just only do one. But if you go and look at all of them and take aspects from all of them, it will definitely guarantee a great lesson, and link all of those things to what is needed to learn a language. The different learning styles make for a fantastic lesson and link to what is necessary when learning a language, including, if you include visuals, listening tasks, reading and writing, speaking, pair and group work, and individual work. So if you can cover all of those different aspects, you are going to have a great class. I really do think it's a mathematical way of doing it. If you have your 7 different things in a row and you can tick off, it's a very mathematical way of starting your lesson planning. Obviously, you don't have to stick to it, but to sort of use that as a prompt, the 7 learning styles as a prompt to get your head, just like you give prompts to students to give them ideas. Let the 7 learning styles be one of your prompts when you are putting a lesson together. That is exactly half an hour on the dot. I think I talked too much, but we have got to the end of all of our slides. A reminder that all of the previous webinars are available on the YouTube channel in the video section. So they are all there and for posterity and forever and ever. So this one as well, by like Tuesday-ish, it should be there. And anything that if you want help with assignments or, there are so many different topics, have a look at the YouTube channel because there's a lot. So now I will open it to questions and I will do my best to answer. So again, thank you so much for all the great ideas as we're going through. It's excellent that we can do this now like such. Right, so questions. Any questions that you have about learning styles, now is the time to ask them. It's always great to see so many people from around the world. We are really a global village, that we can be different times, different worlds, and all be spending this time together. It is like even before COVID, this wouldn't have been something that was that common. Now it happens all the time that people from all around the world can chat and share ideas and ask questions and speak English with each other. It's how times have changed. So any questions about anything that you would like to ask about specific different learning styles, how you think you can add them to a lesson, a classroom, into your assignments, you are welcome to ask all of those questions now. I'm just having a look again. Africans from Pakistan, hello, hi. Also from Durban, Joburg, lots of South Africans as well, UK. So, any questions? I think that for instance, there are 7 different kinds. You don't need to feel pressure that you have to include every 7 into every single lesson. Sometimes you only have a half-hour class, or there are even some schools that do only 25-minute classes. So you can't necessarily fit all of the learning styles into one class. They're just things to keep in mind. Okay, here's a great question. Tyrone, if we're teaching individuals, could we incorporate the 7 learning styles? I think you could. Again, as I just said, the time aspect. So if you have, sometimes you have a one-to-one class and it's only half an hour. You're not going to get through every single one. And sometimes you're doing a lesson, you're following a lesson plan from a school you're working with, and frequently, those ready-made lessons there will be a listening exercise and there will be a reading exercise, but they don't, over a series of 2 or 3 classes, you will cover all 7, but maybe not all 7 in one lesson. But even with one-to-one, interpersonal, you are working together. So you are working with a student. So there is some working together and some on their own. So even if it's one-to-one, the whole lesson is interpersonal. So it is 2 people working together. Okay, this is a great, thanks. Manifest, hi. Manifest learning, hi. Manifest learning, good thing to do. Preferred learning styles. I love reading and I love words. So I love books and I love texts. That's obviously with slightly more advanced students. With kids, moving about is always fun, especially if you're battling. If you're battling and you can get everyone to stand up and do stuff, or all do something together, or learn a song, or it's going to help you, especially with younger kids or a bigger class. So, personally, I like words and reading, and so I always found that was the way to learn, and reading and writing. But in teaching, some people, you can tell that, like, some people battle with that. From reading to taking it in, you can see there's a disconnect. So I think it will depend on your student, or depend on your class. And I like incorporating drama and music into things, but some people, for that would seem superfluous and dull, and others would think it's great fun. So I think take what you enjoy and balance it between the specific needs that your students have. So you have a serious adult student that maybe you just have to focus mathematically and verbally. So it really will depend. Okay. Yes, now the questions are coming in now. Okay, excellent. What would be a good Emmanuel High start learning stuff for someone who's a beginner or illiterate in his own language? So I presume we've been someone who hasn't learned to read yet. I've worked with very young students, and it's a challenge. Pictures, visuals, colors, and songs. Because even when the student doesn't know much, if you sing Old MacDonald, again, let's use that as an example. Here a pig, there a pig, everywhere a pig, pig, and you can go, they're going to remember it. So songs are great for beginners, complete beginners. Pictures, especially young students and beginner students. So pictures. So if you are learning seasons or colors or animals or jobs, that kind of thing, that you can put a picture and a word together, and then short sentences, he eats lunch, and you've got a picture of a boy and a plate of food. That's the kind of thing with beginners that so I do think pictures and images, and then videos, very, simple videos, and songs. So to put songs together, sometimes songs can be a little bit hard, but if you think of nursery rhyme songs where the words are very simple, that's a good place to start with beginners and young learners. Okay, here's another great. With kids, I often use finger puppets or toys. Very nice, because they will often speak more confidently as a character than as themselves. Lovely idea. It is such a great idea. That reminds me of, like, drama and theatre in education, which is where you have students using something and playing a part, which is a great idea. So also, if you've got a teddy bear and it's talking to another, so that is a great idea. So I think, and that is then, so that's visual, that's kinesthetic, that covers a lot of bases as well. So thank you, Rosie. You've already given great ideas, and thank you for more great ideas. Finger puppets are so much fun, and hand puppets can be a bit scary, maybe, for some kids, depending on the age. See if somebody's jumping up. Fun. All right. Flashbacks. Not personally. I think I have scared children many years ago with such things. All right. Okay, there's so many great questions. Okay. What ages? Oh, that's Greek. Oh, yes. Okay, I missed half of this. Okay. Do styles change with age is the beginning of that question. What ages work better? Styles change with age. I think styles probably do change with age. As I said, the movement, kinesthetic, getting adults to jump up is probably not as easy as getting 5-year-olds to jump up. So I do think that what ages work better, what ages. So what what activities work better with children versus adults. So I think adults obviously more, wordier words, texts, and listening with adults is going to work probably, more serious texts and more wordy kind of text will work better with adults, and maybe not as many pictures and movement, and even maybe not as much spatial visual stuff with adults as with kids. Okay. Thank you very much. Balance is good. Absolutely. So bit of everything. And thank you, Emmanuel. Okay, here's another one. If students don't naturally suit written, reading, listening exams, how can you help them show off their understanding, which may be great in exams? That is such a great question. And I think that this scenario of EFL, TEFL, TESOL teaching is a great way where this can actually be looked at. Because traditional schools, to a large extent, don't really give, they're not fair with that. Someone's bad at writing, like, oh, tough. You still have to pass your exams. Whereas within this scenario, you can find a way. So how can you help them to think of an answer now? What is great is that you can look for an answer. Yeah, I think that in some schools, some kids who maybe are dyslexic, for instance, some students who are maybe dyslexic, sometimes they get given a bit of extra time, or they can answer. Even when I was at school a million years ago, some kids, I think, were able to answer some questions verbally and didn't have to write it down. So find that students with what they're best at and try and work with that, because maybe they're good at speaking and you can test them verbally instead of them writing it down. So because one doesn't necessarily have to follow you're not working for the department, or that there isn't a huge greater that you have to answer to, that you can find a way to test a student's knowledge without it being in a more traditional, they must write the exam. So find your way. Okay. The experience of immigrants learn to speak English but illiterate in their own language. I haven't personally found that. I think that would be very interesting. I haven't ever come across that. I think it would be a challenge. I think having to learn to read in your second language would be hard. If you haven't learned to read and write in your mother tongue and your first language, and then you have to learn to read in a second language, I think that will be, depending on the age, if you're 6 years old, it might not be as much of a challenge as if you are older. So I do think that is challenging, not impossible. Nothing is impossible, but I do think that would be something very interesting to look at, something interesting to work with, but I have not personally ever come across that. But interesting. All right, Rosie. Younger children's songs and rhymes are very repetitive in structure. Yes. Counting songs, 10 green bottles, 5 currant buns, 5 little speckled frogs. Those are great things. Where you're counting and it's the same verse that it used to stress me out a bit when I was a kid. I might forget. It'll be my turn to sing and I've forgotten how many green bottles. But as long as you take the pressure off, if there's no pressure, it could be cool. It could be fun. But those are great. Those are great games. Counting songs. And repetitive songs where you have to remember and then go back to it the next week and the next lesson, because they're never remembered, which is also great. But excellent. Also, it's verbal because they're learning the words. You could have pictures of the frogs, the bottles, the currant buns, and then auditory, that you are listening but speaking because you are singing. So it really does cover all of them. Okay, what would be good learning styles for these adults, these ones that are illiterate in their own language? think then pictures and images as well. If you have like photographs, for instance, so these are adults, so it's not pictures of pigs and plates of food. So these are maybe pictures of adults at a restaurant, and then you're looking at what would they say to each other. Videos, and maybe something like Mr. Bean, where it is non-verbal, but everyone understands it. It's one of those things that it doesn't matter where you're from, you understand Mr. Bean. Mr. Bean. That's not my only answer. But something like that, where it's funny and weirdly relatable worldwide, and that you can then add words, written words, to things that you see and understand. So images, visuals, listening, maybe listen for sounds. I remember a set of lessons that were sort of for teen kind of students, and they were listening. It was about movie styles, and they had to listen to sounds and put the sounds together with styles. So it was quite interesting to group sounds with words. You could have like the sound of a bus, or the sound of a bird, or the sound of an alarm, and then put that together with a word. So that kind of thing would also work. Oh, the questions are coming in thick and fast today. Older kinesthetic learners like to move objects around, build things, follow instruction to make things. That's a very, very nice point. Also, those things where that memory game, where like you put a whole set of stuff on a board and then take it away, and then they have to remember what they are. So another one of those games put pressure on. I was obviously very nervous as a child when I think back on these. If I didn't get it right. But yes, no. Build things, follow instructions to make things. And it's also very interesting, older learners. So they could be, I've actually done craft kind of workshops with adults, and it's very interesting. Like they have to cover a journal for themselves, and take a book and make a cover for it, and follow the instructions and get everything together. And it's quite interesting where the struggles and challenges are. And pressure if you have the object to, yes, complete if you've got stuff for people to feel and look at. Right. Some students couldn't find teachers who may answer all their questions in early age. Very interesting question. Such students mostly raise immature questions in teen age, as they never found anyone to satisfy them. That's quite an interesting question, and maybe deals with something else. I suppose it depends on what country you're from, what kind of teachers you've had, how open your parents and teachers are, and if they answered your questions, how much your parents let you know, how much you've been able to watch. And that's the kind of thing that if you are dealing with that as a teacher, it would not be that much fun. That kind of thing, weirdly, you sometimes get immature questions even from adults who didn't deal with things when they were younger. That kind of thing, I go, this is not the time and place to deal with that kind of question, and we can talk about it later. I think if it's something that is not something you would like to talk about or bring up in a whole class, you can just say, we will speak about that later, and it's not appropriate for the class and for everyone right now. I would just shelve it for later. Copyright issues when sourcing photos, music, videos, images, etc. for lessons. I haven't personally, but I can imagine that that is something that happens in the world. Definitely. It's hard. Sometimes if you've got a book that you own, that you bought, but it's on paper. And now you want to have a piece of that book. You want to I mean, I'll use an example, for instance, Dr. Seuss. I love Dr. Seuss for all the time, for students learning a variety of things. Dr. Seuss, I own all the books because I've always loved Dr. Seuss. If you want to find Dr. Seuss online, you actually can find some, but you can't find all. And you can be infringing copyright, even though you own the book. So yes, they are. You can scan them and share it. There are ways around it. But sometimes you want to find a page of a book or you want to play a song. I think if you're not making money out of it, out of it directly, you shouldn't. You hopefully won't come into any copyright issues. But it is quite hard. If you're wanting to find something online, you can sometimes find some weird PDF and find what you're looking for. And nowadays, if you have a song, did you buy that song on Spotify or do you just have it on YouTube? That's a can of worms. I don't have all the answer for the can of worms. Resources you'd recommend, I don't Google. It's always your best bet. And then there are places that have stuff that you can sign in, maybe join a group. You might have to pay, you might not have to pay. That then they have bought the copyright and are sharing it. So by joining that platform, they have covered the copyright because they are a platform and sharing that information. But it's a slippery slope, as I say, a can of worms. So find your way. So many questions. What should be the teaching style for such students? Going back to, these are the students these are our students that are being, you always get, again, something where you get everyone to stand up and work together and say something, drilling together, maybe to forget them. The last webinar I did, I mentioned something about distraction. That's the kind of where you get them to do something else so that they stop being immature and having that. So that student, depends if it's one-to-one, you can work at it. If they are part of a class, I would try not to let them distract too much, distract all the other students, and just try and get them to work together as a group and say, we will deal with that at another time. Haha, Mr. Bean, yes. It is a great one. Making books is great because they can use afterwards. Yes. As I said, a journal, or get you start with a book at the beginning of the class, and it's your English book, or it's your journal book, or it's your special whatever book, and you do it together, is a great idea. They can use it through the term, through the month, through the whatever, with primary class. And Rosie, again, I'd love to chat with you. Different styles which vary in complexity are quite satisfying to make a use. Yes, so sometimes you can just get a book and they must cover it with something or draw a picture to stick on the cover, all sorts of fun things to do. Percentage of how much you can legally use, yes, copyright. So if you are not using it for your own, I mean, obviously you get paid as a teacher, but you are not making your own video using the song and getting and selling it. So I do think that is the percentage of how much you can legally use. Very nice. Thank you, Rosie. Copyright. Okay. Thank you. Fair use, yes. Allows limited usage of copyright material for education. I have read that and seen it, yes. And there are things where you can download just a page or it's part of something else. Very nice. And another great comment. Creative Commons has usable photos for free. Very nice. That's a great source. Google it. Google is everything is there. Because picking through it could take you forever. Ask AI to figure out what materials you use for free. Oh my hat. I suppose you could. And I think I'm too old to trust that. That would scare me, to be quite honest. That would really scare me. I was like, who do you trust? How bizarre. That is probably absolutely valid, but I think I mean, I'm sure one could. There are all sorts of AI things that are great, other things that are a bit scary. Thank you, Ben. Thank you. AI helps you find free photos and images that are free. Very nice. No, there are. I think that one can get, you know, a little bit. I think the older generation gets a bit like, but there are all sorts of things that you can find that are great. The few times I've used something like through someone else, I'm like, that's just not what I was looking for at all. So it personally was not what I was looking for, and I was like, no. But definitely there are real uses, even if it makes everything much warmer than anything else. Oh, very nice. Everyone's got such great advice here. Greg, thank you. Google has search criteria based on copyright-free use. Very nice. This is if you are putting a lesson together in time and with time, that there are definitely things that you can do quietly and calmly and in your leisure and find all the information that you need. I often, not that I leave it till last minute, but I often think I need to find something and then I just need to find it. Which is, I think, where I get to. If you try and do things too quickly and you want it now, that is when you will run into problems. If you do it quietly and calmly in advance, then that is when you will find all of these things and find exactly what you are looking for. So don't rush around, don't rush into things. Don't do what I have done a billion times. You suddenly want something now in your lesson because you go, if I just, this is what I need, that is not the answer. All right, we are coming to the end of it. Yeah, don't do what I say, not what I do. Yes. All right. The L5 course contains a lot of info about source of project. It does. It does. That is a great resource with pointers and addresses where you find excellent stuff. So, and excellent things for all of the different learning styles. So this will point you where you need to find written, things for writing, things for singing, things for speaking. So TTA has a lot of resources. So if you go to the TEFL Academy's webpage, they also just generally have loads of resources for you and places where you can find further resources. So and you can then cover all of the different learning styles. Thank you. Thank you so much. We have covered a lot. Thank you so much for the great variety of questions and for the extra advice. It's such a great place where people can share stories, share things that work for them, and give great ideas. It really is such a privilege for me to be here and do this. I find it so enlightening as well, and it's such fun to talk to other fellow teachers and share ideas. I am going to go on to the next page, which is this page. Thank you for attending. Thank you always for attending and for sharing your ideas and asking questions. And the following, I give that one away, and the following page is the page that asks all of you guys to please tell us what you thought of the webinar, what you thought was useful, what wasn't useful at all, what kind of webinars you would like in the future, what kind of things you like. I would really like to know more about that. This is your opportunity for doing so. I also put the address up right at the beginning over there, so then it's also there. So it's everywhere. So it's a QR code and an address. So please take a minute or two afterwards and tell us if you enjoyed it, and thank you so much. So thank you. there's some names I remember from last time as well. Madison, I remember you. That was so helpful last time. So thank you. All these very helpful students and teachers, teacher, students, student teachers, people who write assignments and do. So thank you, and learn and share. And remember that learning styles, all of them are useful various in various amounts depending on your class. And if you are teaching in actual school or online, all of the things, and enjoy them, because it opens, if you think of all seven, it opens up so much. It gives you so many things to think of and gives you so many ideas. All right, so thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Everyone saying thank you. So enjoy the rest of your Saturday afternoon, evening, morning, and have a good weekend. And thanks for joining us. All right. Bye.